Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day.
See, that scares me. I kind of want to go. End it right there. Take
You don't wanna
questions.
do
All right,
it?
last question.
Okay.
Now, that accent was a little
Hey,
weird. A little
fantasy
scary.
look ahead. Fantasy buy low, sell high. Fantasy Felipe's chin looks incredible today. Fantasy Felipe's beard is growing out again. Fantasy Adam shaved his entire beard today. His baby face is out. It's just a day
You
of
shaved
fantasy.
yesterday, actually.
I did shave. Well,
today.
Tuesday night. I
So
actually
you
got
lied.
a
It wasn't
straight edge.
today. It was actually multiple days ago.
Yep. No,
But it's
caught
okay.
me.
You know, your beard grows. Raheem Mostert, Raheem Mostert RB2 season. So, yeah, dude, I'm in it. This is the first live I'm catching. Love your pod. What's up?
Love you, man. This is unreal. As a reminder, this is the fantasy look ahead episode where we try and answer questions about buying low, selling high, players you should target, players you should trade away. If you have a trade question, we're going to try and answer every single one of them. So make sure to submit them down below. I have everyone on TikTok on my phone. I see people right now on YouTube. So make sure to submit those questions. We will try and get to every single one of them. And as a reminder, always go to thegameday.com/promotions for any DFS offers. And the most important thing I want to call out before we jump into it.
Call it out.
It's just how cute you look today.
Oh my God. No, seriously, what is it?
It's how cute. No, something happened in the fantasy world that never happens this week. Like something, or really over these last couple of weeks, something happened.
I traded for Raheem Mostert. I traded for Miami Dolphins.
Let's go.
Let's
go. That never happened.
Yeah,
but just to have you on the Dolphins train these days is music to my ears.
Amazing.
But yeah, something happened in the fantasy world that never happens over these last couple of weeks, and I want to tell you about it. Is that all right?
That's fine. I thought it was what I just said, but I guess
No, it's fine. This is a different one.
Happened?
So our very own, the Game Day's very own, Caps Off's very own, Frank Amarante. Actually, from weeks 4 and 5, was the number 2 most accurate ranker on Fantasy Pros.
That's actually insane.
Fantasy football accuracy from weeks 4 and 5. He was the number 2 most accurate ranker. So how does that work? You want to break that down, how that works? You want me to explain how that works?
Well, so every week, heading into every week, you know, everybody, all these experts, really, but Frank's the only expert, but all these other experts who claim they're experts outside of Frank, they give out their rankings per position, correct?
Yep.
And after the week happens, the person whose rankings aligns, whose pre-weekend rankings aligns most with how the weekend went down.
Yeah.
They are the most accurate.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for example, in week 5, Frank Amarante, and we're going to link his Twitter down below. So make sure to check him out. And also anytime we talk about our rankings, it's really Frank's rankings. So to give you an example, Frank was the second most accurate wide receiver ranker in week 5. So that means he put his wide receivers ranked 1 through 50 or whatever it might have been. And he was as accurate and as close as it gets to being correct. Nice. In week 4, he did that with the running backs. He was the most accurate predictor in running backs on Fantasy Pros. So that's a huge accomplishment. I don't think people really, factor in how important that is, because everyone's looking for fantasy rankings and where to rank someone and how you should evaluate a trade and whatnot. But when you're the most accurate, or if you're in the top 2 in back-to-back weeks for being the most accurate ranker in fantasy, in the whole fantasy space, it's a massive accomplishment. So make sure to check out Frank's stuff. And anytime we're referring to those rankings, like I said, it's Frank's rankings. So I wanted to shout that out because it never happens in the fantasy world. In back-to-back weeks in the top 2, I mean, it's crazy. It's as credible as it gets.
Because, I know for me, going into every single weekend, that's the first thing I do. A lot of times I got to make decisions. Who am I starting at the flex? Or, just you got to make a game time decision. And I go to rankings to go look at that. Like, is this guy, for example, I've been in between for many weeks, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, or Nico Collins. A lot of times I go to rankings. Who do they have higher based off of the matchup and stuff like that? And so the fact that, Frank has been the second most accurate out of literally every expert that anybody that you ever heard of that is famous per se in the fantasy community, Frank is better than every single one but one these past couple weeks. So that's freaking awesome. Well, so go to thegameday.com because that's where you're going to get those rankings.
Yes, definitely go to thegameday.com. Now, to clarify, that was between week 4 and 5. He was the second most accurate ranker. So make sure to check that out and make sure to keep listening to us because we only talk about Frank.
Love Frank.
So as a reminder, drop your trade questions down below. We're going to try and help you answer them. But before we begin answering some questions, I want to jump into our own version of a little players to target, players to trade for, players to sell away. So let's jump into players to target, players to really aim for, really a buy low, right? The first person on this list, and I think he's been here actually these last 4 weeks, is Bijan Robinson. He had 8 targets last week. What are your thoughts on Bijan right now in fantasy?
I love Bijan. I mean, look, if you can get him for cheaper, we've been saying since the first couple weeks that his usage is only gonna increase, he's only gonna get better. It's still kind of frustrating to see him not be used fully in the way we want to see him. But I mean, he's gonna keep doing his thing, man. The capital they spent on him, his talent, when he touches the ball, he's literally insane. So, like, look, in a redraft league, if you can get him cheaper than he's gonna be in a few weeks because he hasn't been, maximizing his potential per se. I'm throwing that one around a lot today because of you. That's an Adam term, by the way.
Yep, percent.
If you can get him cheaper than he's gonna be in a few weeks, then yeah, go ahead and get him. But like, you gotta, like, for me, for example, if I have Bijan, I don't want to give him away.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And I've been trying to do everything I can to trade for Bijan, and it's gonna be hard to get him. But for example, we were talking about this off the pod, but if you have Raheem Mostert and you could flip Raheem Mostert for Bijan, I would do that. I really would. Even though Mostert's been good, he's 31, the injury history there. It's going to become somewhat of a crowded backfield with Jeff Wilson coming back this week. I think no matter what, you start Mostert as an RB1 while Achane is out. But with that being said, I do think you still need to kind of try and see what you can get for Raheem Mostert. I'm going to name a bunch of players because I see a lot of questions coming in that I definitely want to get to. But I'm going to name some players. Anyone that stands out to you, obviously you have the list as well. Some other players to target. Some other players to buy low on. Tony Pollard's been there. The offense is going to be better. They looked better, but always bet on talent. Puka Nakua's a big one, right? Like Puka had his first down game. He still had a 33% target share. Him and Cooper Kupp combined for 76% of the targets, which is insane. Yeah. And he ran a route on 100% of the dropbacks. I mean, I feel like if you can cash in a wide receiver that's like ranked 14 to 24 for Puka Nakua, I would do that. I would definitely do that.
Oh yeah. Well, what is Puka right now?
Well, let's go to thegameday.com's and check out Frank's article and make sure that we can really get that in there.
Because I feel like 14 to 24. I don't know. I think Puka's gonna have more top 10 days than not. Like I would kind of want to stay with Puka.
Oh no, I'm saying to trade for Puka, not trade away. I'm saying if you can trade one of your guys that might be wide receiver 14 or wide receiver 15 to like 24
to go get Puka.
I'm saying go get Puka. I think Puka's in a great spot right now. You can definitely trade for him. Puka Nakua on Frank Amarante's rankings right now is wide receiver 9 in week 7. It's week 7 already. Holy fuck. So yeah, Puka's a major buy.
Puka.
Some other guys on here, Breece Hall. Usage is insane. He's a 3-down back, 60% route participation.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be talking about a Jets player to buy. We've always known about the talent with Breece Hall, but what are your thoughts on any of these guys on this list?
It's not just the usage with Breece, but it's also his efficiency. Like he is playing well. He's running hard, and he's a game breaker. Yeah. Like that's the biggest thing with him is you get so excited about these guys in fantasy that can take it the distance at any moment. We talk about the Achanes. We talk about like a Jamar Chase as a receiver, guy that is a game breaker, that is more exciting than a guy that's more possession. For running backs, like you have the guys that can go, for like average 3, 4, 5 yards of carry, but not really break one. This guy, Breece Hall, can do it all. He's going to break one. And that just gives you so much excitement because, 170-yard touchdown run that 15 points or whatever it may be crazy. In one on one play is insane. So Breece, I'm all in on with the usage. We know he's healthy now, and his efficiency is crazy.
Absolutely. As a reminder, if you are here, I see a lot of start-sit questions coming in. Make sure to set your reminder for 5 o'clock tonight on TikTok. It will be a start-sit only. So this is really this episode is really for trade targets, players to trade away. So if you have any start-sit questions, make sure to ask those at 5 o'clock tonight on our TikTok, on Caps Off TikTok. And then also, if you're watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button. If you're on TikTok, please subscribe to our YouTube. It helps us out a ton. Yep. Or don't if you fucking hate us.
Yep.
Some other guys I have on this list, guys like Saquon Barkley. He looked explosive. He had 24 attempts. Offense is really bad, but the running back the running back landscape in fantasy right now is so, I think it will have the regression to the mean aspect come into play. So I think Saquon's a guy that could probably find his way back into that top 15 of running backs.
Yeah, especially healthy, yeah.
Another one's DK Metcalf, right? 143 air yards on 10 targets, only had 4 receptions for 69 yards, but had 3 red zone targets. Should have converted a lot more. I've had someone actually in my league be frustrated with DK Metcalf. I'm assuming there are other members or guys that have DK Metcalf in fantasy who are probably frustrated with his usage and expecting more. He's someone that, hey, throw in DK Metcalf if that guy has him and they have another player that you're targeting. So,
hey, another Seahawks receiver, JSN.
JSN.
Now his usage has been going up, his route participation, all the fancy stuff you like to see. Just essentially he's getting on the field more and he's getting targeted more. So that's cool to see. If you have space, our boy Faraz was talking about
switching to 11 personnel.
Yeah, that's right. So 11 personnel. The Seahawks going to have 3 receivers out there. Which is going to be obviously Metcalf, Lockett, and JSN. JSN is going to be a beneficiary of a lot of those targets. And look, it's if you don't have room to stash somebody right now because like you're not going to start him these next couple weeks, that's fine. Don't worry about it. But if you do have that room, he could start popping off in a few weeks if you can get ahead of the waiver wire. And just the waiver order and everything like that, then it's probably a good move.
I asked our very own Scott Engel yesterday thoughts on JSN. He's a diehard Seahawks fan. Obviously, he's a fantasy expert. He's the king. And his thing was saying, obviously, the same thing. JSN's route participation, everything's going up. They're switching to 11 personnel. But he's going to have some games where he really does blow up and then some duds. Naturally, he'll be a boom or bust, flex play type of guy. But I think JSN, he even could be on some waiver wires right now. I don't think that he's on it. He's rostered everywhere. I actually sent out an offer yesterday, I think a lot of times people get very caught up in not only the points that they've scored, but what they're projected this week. And JSN, I know in a half PPR is only projected like 6 fantasy points. And a guy needs running backs. I literally offered him Deontay Foreman and Craig Reynolds because he needs running backs. And I have no use for them right now just to clear some space and see if I can get JSN really low. And I think those really low tier trades can get done for nothing, right? Where there's not as much of you need to add and whatnot. So I think JSN is a really sneaky pickup if he's available and a sneaky trade acquisition if you could get someone to throw them in.
Yes, sir.
Some other guys, your boy Devontae Smith, 3 juicy matchups coming up. Obviously plays the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. The usage, the routes, the matchups all make sense. He had a team high 11 targets in week 6. The one concern was he didn't obviously run as many routes, but I think you buy talent, you buy potential. So I think Devontae Smith's going to have better days ahead. We've said A.J. Brown is not a top 5 wide receiver because of his usage going to kind of obviously drop and dip a little bit as Devontae's comes up. What are your thoughts on your boy Devontae?
Devontae's got to get better. The past couple of weeks were bad. The first 2 weeks of the season, he was on a great pace. Throughout the second half of last year, including the playoffs, he outperformed A.J. Brown by quite a bit, actually. And so this is a guy that is going to get it done. And he's a solidified wide receiver 2. I know he had a bad past couple of weeks, and he can get into wide receiver 1 territory as well. The Eagles offense has to get better. How many times do we have to talk about a guy that is performing that had maybe had a couple bad performances, but the team also did, which means that they have to fix the script. And this guy has to be included in the script for them to actually perform better. Devontae Smith is one of those guys. Look, Jalen Hurts is having a down year. He's regressed a bit. And part of his amazing season last year, especially towards the back half when he was really making that MVP campaign before the injury, was targeting Devontae Smith. I think he's going to have to get back to that to kind of, almost like have his guy that's a security blanket. That's a great route runner. He can find him everywhere. Devontae Smith is going to get more involved. And when he gets involved, man, he's special with the football. So I think if he's a buy low right now, go get him.
100%. You touched on something. Another guy that I have is Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones and really Christian Watson. I don't even know if he's on the list that we had put together.
Yes.
Okay, he is. Aaron Jones, he was injured between weeks 2 and 5. He was the RB1, the overall RB1 in week 1. He's got a great schedule remaining. The Green Bay offense needs him. So when we talk about what you just talked about was if an offense isn't performing and a fantasy player isn't performing, it's actually that's how I kind of factor in these buy lows as well. I think you do the exact same. So naturally, the team, if they're going to have success on offense, they're going to need Aaron Jones to get involved. The running backs are totally messed up right now in fantasy. I think he's one of those guys that his value is super low that you could potentially get a hero strategy out of him, a hero running back strategy out of him if you were to trade for him. He's one, and then Christian Watson's the other guy. I mean, again, I bet on talent. He was amazing last year. The offense needs to get back on track. So those are 2 massive ones. The last 2 that I want to go into before we move into players to trade away. Ramondre Stevenson's a big one. He has a good upcoming schedule. His schedule was shitty over these last couple of weeks. He's a buy high. I wouldn't break the bank for him, but again, it comes down to what the running backs look like. Jalen Waddle's a massive one. And then here are two that are controversial. If you look across some lists, these are one of which is actually on either a buy low or sell for anything at this point. Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce is someone that people don't know what to make of him. So here's where I stand, and I need to know where you stand. Dameon Pierce, obviously Devin Singletary outsnapped him. He was the better running back last week. However, the week before, Devin Singletary barely even played. Dameon Pierce was the guy. Over his last couple of weeks, Dameon Pierce has been stopped at the goal line like multiple times. He had a receiving touchdown called back. He broke another run this past week that was stopped by the whistle. So there were opportunities that his points would have looked drastically different. And yes, he has a poor yards per carry, but getting stuff to the goal line is going to obviously hurt that a lot more. They should be getting their entire offensive line back after the bye. I'm not going to say he's going to be an RB1, but I do think he can return on some spectrum of the RB2 scale. I know our boy Faraz at Upper Hand Fantasy likes him as a buy low. Look, like I've said, the whole running back department is fucked. So if you can buy low when someone's value is super, super low, I think right now he might be in that RB3 conversation. Yeah. So I think his value is more so in the RB2. So I would target. That's why I would personally buy Dameon Pierce if you need running backs and don't want to break the bank. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad you put that last caveat. If you really need running backs, really need running backs, that's fine with me. I haven't been on the Pierce train at all this year. He's been bad. His efficiency has been bad. 2 weeks ago, he had 20 carries. We're like, all right, cool. Like, you got good usage, but it was terrible. 66 yards on those, so 2.6 isn't good. The next week, Singletary gets a lot of snaps, obviously, like you mentioned. So I'm looking at it here. Singletary had 12 last week. Dameon Pierce had 13. So they really give him a 50-50 split. But what's the big thing for me, what they did with those carries. So Singletary averaged 4.8 yards per carry. Dameon Pierce for the second straight week, 2.6. For me, that's just the coaching staff saying, look, this running back's not getting it done 2 weeks ago. The next week, let's split their carries and let's see how they do. Still, Singletary almost two yards per carry more than, or completely 2 yards per carry more than him. And so I just see that trending in that direction towards Singletary. We've seen Singletary have success in the past. I don't know if Pierce is more talented than Singletary. I think
so.
I don't know.
Bro, Devin Singletary was cut from or traded away. No, Buffalo didn't want to re-sign him.
Yeah, he wasn't cut, though. I think his contract just ran out.
Yeah, his contract ran out, but there's a reason you didn't sign him. There's a reason you drafted James Cook. I think we've seen a large enough sample size.
Different teams draft. The Cowboys drafted Tony Pollard when they had Zeke, and Zeke was their running back for the next 5 years still. So it's like, that's a situation. Regardless, I think that Singletary is going to cut into his carries, and I would not want any part of Pierce unless you really need running backs that could potentially be your flex. I just don't know if his volume's going to keep going.
The one counter I'd make before jumping into your boy next is, if he doesn't get stuffed at the goal line, his numbers look drastically different, and it's very similar stat lines to those of the Saquon Barkleys of the world, where that would be the floor, right? So Saquon would have a 16 for 80-yard game with 1 touchdown. Obviously, he'd have some receptions, but from the actual ground game aspect, Dameon Pierce being stuffed at the goal line makes those numbers look a lot worse. And I do think after the bye, things can change. Now, it could skew in the opposite direction for Devin Singletary, but if you need running backs and you do not want to break the bank, I think Dameon Pierce is someone that you can get some sort of return for.
Sure.
In the future.
Probably better than what he's valued.
That's kind of my point, right? Sure. Is where he's valued. Last but not least, before we jump into players to sell and then answering some questions, is Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
4 for 72.
Like that.
He's the only Kansas City wide receiver you can trust. He had a 49% snap share, tied for the second most routes run behind MVS last week. He ran a route on 51% of the dropbacks. He has a 31% target rate per route run, and Justin Watson's injury is going to create more opportunities. Are you buying Rashee Rice?
Yeah, hell yeah, I'm buying him. I think he's a wide receiver 1 right now for the Chiefs.
For the Chiefs.
I had to specify he's not anywhere close.
Well, I think he's the only one you want from a wide receiver.
Yeah, I think so. They drafted him for a reason. A lot of people were high on him because the Chiefs did spend a second rounder on him, I believe. But then a lot of people were low because they also did that with Sky Moore the year before and did nothing with him. But he's clearly having a better season than Sky Moore had last year. And Mahomes is targeting him. 4 for 72. That's nice. And he's doing a lot with that. He's an explosive wide receiver. That's what a lot of people did like about him coming out of SMU. And the potential of pairing him with an explosive quarterback who can get it to him in improvisation, get it to him however he could, then that's appealing. And I think that Rashee Rice is he's hitting the what we hoped he could be. So 4 for 72 is good. I could see him getting even more receptions, maybe six, going up to hopefully if he's really that guy, 7 to 8 in upcoming weeks. But I think it's just promising. So right now he's probably a flex play potentially if you want to consider him there. But I think he can be like a straight like for sure flex play in the upcoming weeks.
I agree. Players, let's talk about some players to sell, players to trade away. Again, this is not necessarily because you're afraid of their potential future impact, but also what you can get in return. So some guys, and I want to kind of run through these quickly so we can get to some questions.
Yep.
But Josh Jacobs is a really big one. 5th in red zone carries, but only 2 red zone touchdown offenses. Looks really bad. He's got some 2 bad matchups coming up. Dead last in fantasy points scored above expectation. I would sell on the name value. Raheem Mostert. You just bought Raheem Mostert.
Yes.
And I think Raheem Mostert, if you have Raheem Mostert, just try and put some feelers out there. See if you can get Bijan Robinson back in redraft formats for Raheem Mostert. I'm going to take that chance any given Sunday. Alvin Kamara is another one. Sell high. Usage is great, but Jamal Williams coming back is obviously going to cut into share. You want to talk about the other 2 guys?
Adam Thielen. Well, I mean,
you and I disagreed on that on Tuesday's episode of selling high on Adam Thielen.
Right. Yeah. I would love to keep him. But again, like it's kind of like what you're talking about Dameon Pierce. It's about value. If other people are valuing a guy really low, then you could get, you could probably get him for cheaper than what he actually is. Right. And that's the same thing with Adam Thielen. And so, yeah, I can see him as a sell high. Whenever a guy's balling out, look, I love the guy and I think I would try to keep him. But if somebody's valuing him incredibly high because of his recent performances, he's wide receiver 3 over the season, then 100% see what you can get back from him. I know you love talking about getting another, top tier guy in return and some sort of package. So there's some guys up there that you could probably be talking about with Adam Thielen. Give me some names like
Devontae Adams.
That's a good one. That's a great one.
Yep.
And so, yeah, if you can start to get a guy like that has an incredible ceiling, higher ceiling than Thielen, assuming that Thielen's not going to keep this up because he's probably not, then that's something I would look at. So I like Thielen a lot. The second guy is George Pickens. So Deontay Johnson coming back. I see that. Target share is only going to go down with Pat and DJ coming back. And then 26% target share through 5 games. What do you have to – what's your thought on that?
I think it's not incredible. It's a good – I'll take that, right? Like it's not something to write home about. I do think the fact that Deontay Johnson's come – here's how – let me answer that in a better way. It should have been a lot higher with them missing Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson.
Okay.
He is the most talented wide receiver on that entire team. The problem is I don't think talent is going to get you fantasy production. He is going to be boom or bust.
Yeah.
Are you going to rely on these big plays? Because he's broken big plays week after week.
Yeah.
So when I look at talent and I think of big play opportunity, he just doesn't fit the bill of someone that I trust. He can have big games. I think he's also going to have lulls. And the offense is just shitty. Like, I don't feel comfortable starting.
So you think his value is at his highest
Correct.
right now?
Yeah.
I hate it with George Pickens just because he's so talented, like you said. But talent doesn't equate to fantasy points. But if his talent could be used in Kansas City, like imagine if he was there, or if he was in Buffalo or something like that. Like it's just not fair to see him with a Kenny Pickett ass quarterback, bro. Or like the end of Ben Roethlisberger. I think he had Ben Roethlisberger last year, maybe there. Oh no, he was last year. He was a rookie last year, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So he never even had big.
But Matt Canada is the worst.
Everything about Pittsburgh sucks. Their offense sucks, right? Yeah. And I would just love to see him in a right opportunity where he could actually take advantage of his talents, bro. Even if it was, I don't know. I'm trying to think of good offenses, but I just put him with a good quarterback, and I would love to see it. But yeah, what you said, his value is probably not going to be any higher, especially with those guys coming back, Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson, and so try to get rid of him now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you pair him with someone else. If you can go, we talked about Adam Thielen and George Pickens. If you could trade Adam Thielen and George Pickens and get Devontae Adams and a smaller wide receiver back, or even I'll package those 2 for Devontae. I don't give a shit because if you have depth, obviously, if you're just going just for the name value, then I'll do that.
Yeah,
because
and I'll tell you what, if I have Devontae Adams in this scenario and you offer me Thielen and Pickens, I might take it if I need depth, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so make sure to submit some questions. We're going to now move into a segment where we answer questions both on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever we might be. So make sure to submit trade questions, what to do with certain players. We'll try and break it down as best as possible. As a reminder, if you're on YouTube or if you're on TikTok, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. Also, we've been doing a giveaway on social media, but if you give us 5 stars, actually just give us a rating on either Apple or Spotify, and then go to our latest TikTok post and comment 5 stars. You'll be entered in to win a free jersey of your choice. That's any NFL jersey, and it could be Braxton Berrios, it could be River Craycraft, it could be Rashee Rice, it could be anyone, it could be Jake Bobo. It could be anyone.
Bobo Flex.
This guy said, Elias Wiskovich, great fucking last name, said he got Puka Nacua for Ramondre Stevenson. Look, Ramondre was also on our list of buy lows. There are 2 people that you could buy low on if you need a wide receiver. I love Puka.
Yeah, it sounds like a fair trade ish. Yeah. Depending on, if it was 1 for 1, then yeah, I can kind of see it. Depends on what you need. If you need a receiver, that's sick. Puka's gonna be good, man.
Yeah. AIM, by the way, on TikTok said trade Jalen Waddle and Josh Jacobs for Stephon Diggs. I also have Kamara and JT.
Okay.
Trade Jalen Waddle and Josh Jacobs for Stephon Diggs. Would you do that trade?
So he also has who?
He has Alvin Kamara and Jonathan Taylor.
Okay. Well, how would you lean?
Who are your other wide receivers? Because that I think it really depends, right? Because I think Jalen Waddle is stuck in that wide receiver 2 role. I think the blow-up game is coming for Jalen Waddle. That's the issue.
Coming.
However, Stephon Diggs has been arguably the most consistent wide receiver in fantasy. He has any given Sunday put up points. He had 12 targets through the first half of Sunday night.
I mean, look, you got 2 good running backs aside from Jacobs, but I like the depth that you have with also having Jacobs there. And so, like, I kind of feel like you're in a good position right now, but I get the allure with Stephon Diggs. I mean, I would try to get him too. So if you have another running back that maybe isn't quite Josh Jacobs, but you could sub in case of an injury or maybe just have him in flex play, then I would make the trade because you're getting the best player in that deal for sure.
I'm with you on that. Gage Beats on TikTok says, I'm in first with Tyreek Hill. Would you trade him for a solid RB2 and a good wide receiver? I have Alexander Mattison and ETN. I wouldn't.
I got distracted by this YouTube question, the Bobo flex. But let's go there in a second. What was that?
He said, Gage on TikTok said, I'm in first with Tyreek Hill. Would you trade him? Would you trade Tyreek Hill for a solid RB2 and a good wide receiver? I have Alexander Mattison and ETN.
Those are his starters?
Yeah, those are his running backs.
I mean, look, if you're in first place right now, then you're in first place for a reason.
I wouldn't do it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Tyreek is the top 5 receiver right now at this point.
He's number 1.
Is he number 1?
He's number 1.
Yeah, so, it's hard to do that. I understand the appeal, though. You're like, all right, I'm already in first. I can get rid of Tyreek and actually add depth and still be good. You're in a position to pick your poison. Adam says no. I say...
Well, here's why I'll say no.
It's
because
close.
I think the most consistent strategy on winning fantasy teams right now has been hero running back, which is what I brought up earlier. You have one amazing running back. Like teams that have a Christian McCaffrey, teams that have Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, even Bijan, who hasn't been tremendous, but that as their 1R running back and then just wide receivers are likely 4-2, 5-1, or 6-0. So the reason I think Etienne can be that guy for you, if I'm trading Tyreek Hill, I want Bijan Robinson back. I want fucking Christian Watson and Puka Nacua. Like, I want an absurd fucking haul for Tyreek Hill. I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't just trade. I would never trade Tyreek 2 for 1. I would see only if someone's inflating that value would I make that trade. Fair. Chandler on TikTok said, should I try and trade Jonathan Taylor for Tony Pollard?
No. I mean, just 1 for 1, that doesn't make it. I don't know what you're doing there. So I'm assuming there's other players involved. So you have Jonathan Taylor, you want Tony Pollard, there's other players involved. It really depends on the other players. Jonathan Taylor for Tony Pollard, I wouldn't do it. Taylor's going to he's getting more usage every single week. He did pretty well this past week.
They split with Zach Moss.
Yeah, it's not going to be a split every single week. You know, he's going to start getting more and more carries. It's going to turn in his direction. And Pollard and the Cowboys rushing offense has been bad. I think it'll get better. I don't know how much better. I would just kind of keep what I got.
If it was 1 for 1, I'd probably take Tony Pollard. The reason I would take Tony is, like, me personally, I'd want to. Obviously, you're the Cowboys fans, so you could speak on it a lot more. I know he's going to get 100% of those goal line carries. Now, he hasn't converted those, but Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss has played well enough to cut into his time. The Colts offense is going to be worse. No Anthony Richardson. Now, granted, Anthony Richardson going down helps Jonathan Taylor because it's more rushing touchdowns potentially for him. I just think, like, if you take the actual offenses and opportunities, Tony Pollard might have a slightly better one. But
that's true.
I don't think it's going to be a 1 for 1 trade. I don't know who would do that.
Here's what's about to happen. You heard it here first.
Deuce Vaughn?
No. Derrick Henry's going to be traded to Dallas, and that's going to fucking kill Pollard stock.
Okay.
Especially goal line stock.
Let's go into Derrick Henry right now in fantasy.
All right.
Because I wanted to put Derrick Henry on our buy low list.
Okay.
And I've seen him everywhere on sell highs, just off of name value. I think Derrick Henry's going to get traded. Like, why wouldn't you? You just brought up Dallas. Why wouldn't Baltimore try and trade for him? Like, could you imagine if he went to Baltimore?
City.
Kansas. Pacheco's been good, though.
He's been good, but I've been hearing some rumblings.
Woo! Derrick Henry. So, would you trade for Derrick Henry in fantasy, knowing that there's would you be willing to take that risk?
Yeah, I would 100% take the risk. It just depends on what am I trading for him. If the guy that has him is overvaluing the fuck out of him just because of his name, then I'm not doing it. But if the guy's like, look, he hasn't been great. He's had really bad weeks this year, and I kind of just want to get rid of him, I would jump all over Derrick Henry. Because if he gets traded and he's in the right situation, his outlook completely changes. Like right now, he's completely game script dependent. Because when the Titans are down, he's not getting the ball. Tajay Spears is there. He's a better pass catcher and everything like that. If he goes to a good team that actually has the lead quite a bit, like Philly, like Dallas, like one of these teams, I don't think Buffalo needs him, but like think about that. Then he's actually getting he's actually getting the ball quite a bit. His game script completely changes. He's up to like a top 5 running back in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll present this opportunity for you. I have Nico Collins. I need a running back. This guy needs weapons. Would you trade Nico Collins for Derrick Henry if you need running backs?
Easily.
No question? You take
no
that. Even so, what happens if he stays in Tennessee?
I think it's fine. I think Nico has been doing well this year. He's not incredibly consistent. Like he's been like decently consistent. He's been fine. But I don't think Nico is. I think his value is a little bit inflated at this point. I don't think it necessarily stays that way. I would just bank it on the potential that Henry gets traded. I would do it.
Yeah. I think, look, again, scare money don't make money in fantasy. Derrick Henry's potential. It feels like he's going to get traded, right? All their value was banked into Ryan Tannehill being there. He's obviously hurt. Malik Willis is the guy. It feels like they should sell off assets. We'll do a couple more questions before we sign off. Huh? No more questions. I'm being told no more questions, but I'm going to break the rules and do one more question. Last question. Let's see. Let's find the right question. Would you trade DeAndre Swift for Kenneth Walker?
Yes.
Why?
Because the Eagles' offense has been a little bit worrisome. Now I know they have a good run offense, but they just got stymied this past week.
Stymied.
Woo! It's a good one. I like Kenneth Walker's ceiling. I think he's a lot more talented than DeAndre Swift. I like Kenneth Walker just as a player better than DeAndre Swift. I'm gonna go with him.
Good take. All right. Well, look, as a reminder, if you have more trade questions, more start-sit questions, set your reminder for 5 p.m. tonight on TikTok. We'll be doing a TikTok live. So that'll be going for an hour, not just 30 minutes, and getting cut off by Matan, who sucks. But so make sure to set that reminder for 5 p.m. tonight. Also, hit that subscribe button. If you're at YouTube or if you're on TikTok, go to our YouTube and hit that subscribe button. It helps us out tremendously. Also, go to Apple or Spotify, give us a rating, helps us out, and you can be entered into a chance to win a free NFL jersey of your choice. And last but not least, let's give another shout out to Frank Amarante. He's back-to-back for week 4 and 5, a top 2 ranker on Fantasy Pros. So make sure to go to thegameday.com and find Frank's weekly rankings. His week 7 rankings are up now. So make sure to tune into that.
Yeah.
And again, we will see you tomorrow for our predictions episode. And fins up, baby.
Fins up.